on, you guys? This is Pam with 2200 Taps. We're still sitting in this quarantine, coronavirus crap. I don't know about you guys, but I just heard it got extended to like April 30th or something, and it's not even April yet, and I'm about to go batshit crazy if this thing continues. But we do have a podcast, and we got to keep going with it, and I'm excited for my guest today because my guest and I were actually stationed together in Sabine Pass, Texas, back in 2010. And Oof. Yeah, it's been a while.
Was it that long ago? Gosh.
I know. It feels like yesterday. And, we've kind of kept in touch ever since, I got out and he transferred out. And the whole purpose of this show is to let you guys know, as the listeners, what it kind of looks like on the inside as far as, being in the service. We always hear, you always hear about, casualties or fatalities overseas, this, that, and the other. But Sam and I were both in the Coast Guard, and we both have been through our own traumas. And you guys heard about what I went through. If you haven't and you're a new listener, go back to season 1, episode 3, where it's my story, and you will absolutely hear, in detail, what I went through that really, really just jacked me up. But my guest today is, again, his name is Sam Kelton. He was a bosun mate, and for those that don't know, he drove the boats and I fixed them for the most part. I
was your cat to your dog kind of a thing.
Pretty much. And I hate cats, so absolutely hate them.
And I did a really good job of keeping you all well employed.
Oh, for sure. Job security all around between you guys and civilians and all that crap. But thank you, Sam, so much for being here today. It means the world to me. It's good to see your face. I'm actually on Google Hangouts, and I'm finding that doing a Google Hangout on these telephone interviews is really helpful as far as engaging with my guests. And Sam is a family man now. He's got a little one, so if she comes in and sits on his lap, we're just going to roll with it and see what happens, because that's what life is all about, right? So
she'll probably say hi. She's a budding performer.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
And she's a cutie, man. She's got red hair.
Let me tell you about Disney.
Oh, no.
And this devil that is Disney Plus right now. Okay? I am so frozened out right now. I know every song to Frozen 2, that on a nightly basis, one will go on repeat in my head, and the next night, the next song in the track starts. So, however, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
It must be
that. Thanks for having me here, Pam. Honestly, it's been kind of cool, like seeing this, watching you peripherally, how this is happening for you. And I will say that as soon as we kind of solidified that this was going to happen, this interview today, this format, I went on a binge listening, watch, however you want to talk about with your podcast.
Really?
And it's really cool to watch. Your questions are great. The way you kind of lead the guest. And I will say, I finished up. I purposely saved your story for last, because we talked about a year and a half ago over the phone about your story a little bit, helping you with the VA, navigate the VA stuff. And it hit me again kind of very powerfully in the way you described it, because I could put myself back there in that coxswain chair on that 41, or even on the back deck of it. It was very powerful.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And it strikes a chord with people that have a vivid imagination, that have been there, maybe not been there, done that, but can imagine it. So I love this format for you, and I'm hoping it's nothing but the continued best for you.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And to be honest, like, Sabine Pass wasn't my best duty station. Like, I busted my ankle, and I just kind of was like, I'm done. I don't want to be here. I'm getting out. Like, I had this piss poor attitude towards the end, and I missed out on some stuff, but I was still engaging, and was able to stay connected with, like, you and a few others. But my story, like, I had a decent career, but that one incident after I left Sabine that happened in Wisconsin, just, I still,
it's a tough one,
Yeah. I mean, here we are 8 years later, and I'll have dreams. I break down at the sounds of a scream, like a certain scream. I start crying. I'm like, what the hell is going on with me? And so much where I became afraid of water. Like I didn't want to jump in. And even swimming, like I just wanted to swim as hard as I could, as fast as I could. And I wasn't the one that went in the water. So it was just kind of it was really weird to navigate. But with my therapy and my help, it's been getting better. But it's still there. And, this is probably a good point to bring up why I kind of wanted you on this podcast, just because we've reconnected and we helped each other, a year or so ago with the VA. And you went through something very, very significant and very traumatic that I don't wish upon anybody. And I think when you and I were stationed together in Sabine, we had a taste of it when we lost Wiley. And for those that don't know, we lost a shipmate of ours in Sabine Pass to a motorcycle accident. And the whole thing was just really just shitty, to say the least.
It was. There's no better way to describe it. And that's what you'll notice about coasties or sailors in general. Shitty is like the lowest of the low. Mm-hmm. Like the worst insult you can call somebody is a shitbag in the Coast Guard, because it means that they don't do anything. And this situation was shitty because there was just nothing we could do. It was a tragic accident, and I think just compounded by that he had a young pregnant wife, and I still keep in touch with people that were stationed there that were very good friends with Wiley, and he touched a lot of people. And his attitude is just his personality touched a lot of people. Oh, for sure. So,
for sure. And, it just, what's funny is he's buried out here in Crum, Texas by Dallas where I live. And,
up there.
Yeah. He's up here. So, every Memorial Day I go and visit him.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll go.
That's awesome.
It's, I don't know what it is about it. And then I'll play the Robert Earl Keen song that he used to love. The Corpus Christi Bay.
Yeah.
And that's how I choose to remember him, especially being so close to him now. We weren't terribly close, but we did, our PT test together. And like you said, he was so excited. His wife was pregnant and he had just transferred over to our duty section. Matter of fact, I was pissed off at him that Thursday night because he was late for relieving me for watch. And I was so mad. I was so pissed. And he comes strolling in. I'm like, ugh, I just take over. And
what? That was him. Like what?
And his suntan on his face from his sunglasses.
Oh, that reverse raccoon thing.
Yeah, that reverse raccoon. And it was just how we all came together when we lost him and chose to honor him and all that stuff. That was really cool.
Yes.
It really stung, but we really pulled together as a unit and. As people that really cared about him. So with that, Sam and I had a taste of, tragedy on our end as far as losing a shipmate. And it's kind of shitty to say, like, you hear a lot of people in the Army, the Marines, they lose buddies all the time. And it's just really it's the nature of our jobs and what we do. We do lose a lot of coasties and not a lot of people know that. And a lot of it's to motorcycle accidents and unfortunately, suicide's another one. But you, Sam, you went through something so horrific that I just couldn't even stomach it. Matter of fact, I didn't realize you were on the boat or on the cutter when it happened. But I remember watching Deadliest Catch, this one episode of Yeah. And we're just gonna go right into it. I saw it and. All of a sudden it was like, the air station, I think it was Kodiak or somebody that had to go and get one of us. And I'm like, what? Yes. So I saw that play out and I saw that we lost him and it really sucked just to see it unfold as a viewer. And I believe I was still in when that happened. If not, I had just separated. So
yeah, it was November 13.
2013?
Yes.
Yeah, I was definitely still in. And, when I found out you were on the ship, it really crushed me to know that you went through that. So I kind of want to pick up there. Okay. If you could just share anything and everything you want about that? Just, what led up to it? What was the whole point of even launching the small boat at that point? To what?
We'll hit that. We'll get into that for sure.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pass the torch over to you, and you just take us where you want us to go.
Okay. Well, let me back it up a little bit. So, summer of 2013, I transferred from Sabine Pass to Alameda, California, to the what everybody now knows as the National Security Cutter, which is the biggest cutter in the Coast Guard fleet, 418 feet long. At that time, I was on Weishi, so she was 752. She's number 2 in the fleet to the other cutter that was built previous to her. So, literally jumped in with both feet. I'd never been underway on a cutter before other than a few nights on an 87 to go help them do shrimp boat boardings, a small patrol boat to go help them do shrimp boat boardings way offshore. And so that was pretty much just like the station, small boat station. So I got to the cutter, and here I am, a BM2, an E5 in the Coast Guard. I've got all these coxswain or boat driver certifications for all these boat classes. I'm a boarding officer. And I go back to nothing. I have no qualifications now at this unit. And I thought I knew everything. I'm not afraid to say I was arrogant. I wasn't confident. I was arrogant, and there's a difference. Mm. And that changed big time. So that learning process of being underway on that cutter, you learn to stay in your lane. You have to, because now this is your job, what you're going to do. So I was assigned to the navigation department, which was cool because now I got to do. I was up on the bridge. I was working on the navigation gear, radars, chart plotting, all that fun stuff. Basically helping the officer of the deck, the person in charge of the ship for that 4-hour block of watch, helping them keep the ship on course, backstopping them, and hey, this is where we're going. This is where you need to go next. Hey, look, coordinating with the Combat Information Center to say, hey, there's a concentration of boats over here we need to go check out. So let's plot a course. Let's go do it. So it was really cool. It was really interesting to start learning all that stuff and it was reabsorbing all of it again. Went through the qualification process fairly quickly. And August, so I got there in July, and then middle of August, we get underway to go to Alaska to do what they call a D-17, District 17 patrol. And we're going to go up there and we're going to do the fishery season. So we're going to basically ride herd. We're going to be the search and rescue response cutter for the crab fleet. That's the deadliest catch crab fleet. Mm. We're going to do some other boardings and some other things, stuff like that. We're going to go up and show the flag, so to speak, up in the Arctic Ocean, play chicken with a Russian intel frigate, all this cool stuff. So we're bebopping along through there, hit some awesome port calls. We do Kodiak, Alaska, which is like Coast Guard City Central. Half the population of Kodiak, Alaska is Coast Guard. Mm-hmm. So great. Cool to see that first port call. Great to get out of there and go actually get to the job. And then you do Dutch Harbor. And that show Deadliest Catch does not do Dutch Harbor justice. When I say there is nothing in Dutch Harbor, there is nothing in Dutch Harbor, Alaska. It is literally the best place to eat is Amelia's, which is a little Mexican restaurant. And she likes to joke that she is the furthest Western Mexican in the United States. Little Amelia, I forget the family's last name, but the name is Amelia's. Best milkshakes I've ever had. Wonderful. There's one bar, and then there's a hotel, which is literally for $200 a night. It's the most expensive Motel 6 you'll ever see.
Really?
It's really nice lobby and all that fun stuff, but inside the rooms, I mean, yeah. The whole place just caters to the fishing industry, and that's all it is. It makes you wonder, all that stuff. There's some World War II history there, which I'm a history buff, so I had to go check out all the bunkers. And it was one of the few places other than Pearl Harbor that was actually bombed by the Japanese.
I saw that on actually an episode of Deadliest Catch. One of the captains was going to celebrate with fireworks, and he took them up one of the mountains or something to show them that area. It was actually really cool.
Oh yeah. So the cutter actually moors up right next to the bunkers and everything. So it was really cool. So we did Dutch Harbor a bunch of times, and probably pulled into Dutch Harbor 3 times in the all the way through October, all the way through the end of October. So I'm tired of Dutch Harbor, Alaska. And when I say I'm tired of it. Nothing new to explore. Um, but
Oh man.
so we pulled into Nome, had a good time in Nome, Alaska. These gold rush towns. It was kind of interesting to see all that fun stuff. So we had just got done with a 2-week stint underway, and this is end of October, beginning of November. So we've been underway for 2 weeks, hadn't seen land or hadn't seen dry land. I believe we'd been up past Nome through the Bering Strait, and I believe we'd been in the Arctic Ocean, and dealing with a military exercise involving some F-22s and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I say we played chicken with the Russian intel frigate, literally the Russian intel frigate tried to sneak in to collect electronics intelligence on the F-22 because it was still a brand new fighter plane at the time. So this is 2013. So middle of the night, we darkened ship, shut off all of our radars, shut off all of our lights, everything, and snuck up on them. And we got to within 500 yards before they even recognized we were there.
No
and they called out to us
shit.
in Russian. Yeah, so it was really cool. Like general quarters, we're on our side of the line. They're in international waters, and we just like, hey, you want to collect any information, you got to go through us. And we turned everything on, like all of our radars, all of our lights, and just threw so much electronic interference in the air that they just turned around and went home.
I shit my pants.
So, I mean, I was up on the bridge for this, it's at 4 a.m. and the sun's coming up, and it's like, this is pretty cool, or maybe, it had to be later because it's later in October, so it'd be closer to 7 or 8. But we weren't that far north. But yeah, so, the sun was coming up, all that fun stuff. Cool. Turn around, head back down to Dutch Harbor. We're going in. It'd be a 2-day run. We're going into Dutch Harbor. Cool. We get right offshore Dutch. And we set the specialty sea detail, which for all your viewers, it means like, hey, everybody who's got a job for mooring up this ship, this 418-foot cutter, you go to your detail. You go to where you at. For me, I was the line handlers. I was in charge of line handlers on the aft deck, on the boat deck. So on the very back of the ship, we keep all our small boats, and we launch them through a notch. So I was in charge of the party that was in charge of line 5 and line 6. And that was me. So then I had a first class petty officer above me who was like safety. Like his job was just basically not letting safety violations happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was in charge on the radios and all that fun stuff. And so we're cool. We're pulling into Dutch Harbor. We're going past Priest Rock. And now I hear, all hands brace as Weishi comes about. Okay, that's weird. We're turning around. We're pulling a 180. All right. Now, secure the special sea detail, set the nav and anchor detail. And we're like, what? Okay, cool. Let's call back. Hey, can I get clarification? What do I need to do with line 5 and 6? Put line 5 and 6 away, break out the tow lines. All right. Well, that's a little weird. Okay. And cool. Don't ask questions. Don't have time to ask questions. Cool. Start doing that.
So you have a SAR case.
Yeah, so we got a SAR case, and like all of a sudden you hear the gas turbine come on, you hear the diesels, all that fun stuff. So it's just like, whoa, wait a minute, we just went from doing 10 knots going into Dutch Harbor, literally 500 yards from the pier, to now we're doing 28 knots.
Jeez.
And heading towards 35.
And for my listeners, SAR is actually an acronym for search and rescue. So if you hear Sam and I say SAR, that's what we're talking about.
Yes, I'm getting into the game here, so I'm going to get real acronym heavy. So not
absolutely.
We're doing 30 knots. That's probably about 35 miles an hour for a 4,500 tit ship. Yeah, a 4,500 ton ship. That's a lot of steel to be moving. But anyway, insane. So we get briefed. The deck force and nav team get briefed, and it's basically cool. We've got this crab boat. They're disabled. And their anchor's dragging on Slime Bank. Okay, cool. So they're dragging, and they're going to be on the rocks in a couple hours. All right, that's not good. All right, so let's go prevent that. The ship that was originally sent out, the commercial salvage ship that was originally sent out to help them, ended up fouling their tow line in their own prop. So all right, cool. That stinks. Seas aren't too bad, so we're looking at we're looking at 6, 7, 8 foot seas. All right, that's a nice day. I'll sleep in that all day. So we steam for about 18 hours full speed, get to the ship, and cool. They're anchored. Now they pull their anchor in preparation for us passing the tow. Cool. Now they're drifting for some reason, and I'm not quite sure what, because again, remember I'm an E5, so I'm at a good rank. I'm a BM2 where I'm like basically, hey, I get to make shit up sometimes, and I get to tell people to do shit, and I don't get involved in all of the political bullshit all the time. But for whatever reason, the order comes that, hey, we're going to remove the non-essential people on this vessel. And I use non-essential kind of tongue-in-cheek wise, because here we are in COVID-19 right now, and everybody's deciding who's essential and who's not. We're finding out real quick, whose job can be done from home and whose can't. So I'm thinking, and back me up on this, Pam, back doing all of our search and rescue cases where we're going to tow a boat back into shore. If the boat had power, it had heat, it had water, it had food, it had all the creature comforts, do we need to launch a boat to take people off? Do we need to take people off the boat? Do we need to do a transfer, an at-sea transfer? Basically, we have to launch a small boat, and these people have to come down a ladder and time the swells going up and down the ladder, time the swells and jump into our small boat, and then us recover that small boat with those people, Yeah. And keep in mind that we're going to be taking civilians that aren't used to going up and down that ladder, aren't used to our procedures. Okay. So
red flags are popping off already.
Yeah, right. So see, the weather is and let me paint the weather here. The fog is setting in. It's about 1.5 miles visibility, so it's still we're close. We're within about 500 yards of the ship, so a quarter of a mile. Captain basically, goes and rallies all the coxswains. He's like, all right, cool. You're the sergeant. He points to one guy. You're the sergeant duty coxswain. Let's get a crew underway. Let's go get these non-essential people. And that duty coxswain kind of goes, Captain, I don't really feel comfortable doing that. Like the seas are not real good. Quartermaster of the watch, the navigator of the watch is basically, he's logging 8 to 10 foot seas. I'm a basic coxswain. I'm only certified to operate in 8 foot seas or under. Okay. So and the captain's like, well, this is a rescue mission, da-da-da-da-da. He names off all this stuff. And we're just like, man, I don't know about that, Cap. And, so he points to the BM1 now, who's a little bit more certified. BM1's like, Cap, I'm with BM2. He said no. And mind you, I'm not a certified coxswain at this point. I'm not a certified coxswain on this ship at this point, on these small boat platforms that we have. And we don't have a good track record with these small boats that we have in the Notch right now. Basically, what happened is they built the ship and they planned for the small boats they were going to put in there, but they didn't acquire them by the time they put the ship in service, or the class of ships in service. So we have a Mark IV, which is still at the point in time as a prototype. The Mark IV OTH was going to be the boat that they were going to use to basically chase down all the drug smugglers down in, I don't know, Costa Rica, where it's warm and not so shitty weather. So we had that boat up there, and every time we launched that small boat, we ended up breaking the engine mounts on it. So it was a jet drive boat with the engine mounted forward of the console. So it was forward of the middle of the boat. So you take those heavy seas up there at 35, 40, 50 knots with that thing, you're going to break something, because you're just going to slam down hard. And nobody really knew how to drive it. Nobody was real familiar with jet boats at the time in the cutter fleet. The other boat we had was an SRP, a short range prosecutor. And this thing was you see the old 1920s, 30s movies of the old bathtub looking small boat. Mm-hmm. This is the second iteration of that thing. It's not a bathtub, but it maneuvers like one. It's slow to, you throw it all the way forward, and in about 3 seconds, it decides that it's going to go. So it's not real responsive. It's not real fast. All this fun stuff. And it was not built for the cutter either. It was built for a different class of cutter. So that was what was in the Notch at the time, was the SRP. Now that console was way far forward. We were having problems with how our rig was was how the arresting system, or how you captured yourself when you recovered in the small boat and the notch of this cutter. We were having problems with how that boat fit in that notch and how we recovered that boat. And I'll explain that in further detail as the story unfolds. Okay, so Captain, he looks at the newest coxswain, a BM3, and says, "All right, go. Will you do this mission? Will somebody grow a set of balls and do this mission?" And they're all like, "No." And I distinctly remember this. And this, to this day, is what pisses me off to no end about this story. Captain looks back at the original BM2, who's the duty cox, and he says, "If you ever want to be a qualified underway OOD on this cutter, i.e., if you ever want to be in charge of this cutter for a deck watch officer, OOD, however you want to respond to it, that OOD is the person who's in charge of the cutter on the bridge, responsible for all that stuff. If you ever want, and it's a very prestigious certification to have, especially for a BM2 on this brand new, like state-of-the-art class of cutters. Like, he would be the first BM2 to ever have it. Because if you ever want to be an OOD on this cutter, like, show me you want it."
He said that?
Yes. Show me you want it. I have to question, if you are nervous about getting a small boat underway on a rescue mission, I have to question it brings into mind, and this is not verbatim, but it
like his judgment.
To the effect of it calls into my mind your good judgment when I'm sleeping at night and you're in charge of the cutter. He strong-armed him into launching that boat.
Ugh.
Okay.
What a dick.
What a dick. So this had 06, Captain of the Coast Guard, smelling his Admiral star all over it. Like, he could say, "Hey, this is it. This is how I punch my ticket. This is how I become, an Admiral in the Coast Guard." So remember back in Sabine, I was always excited to get underway. Mm-hmm. Always. I wanted to get underway all the time. Mm-hmm. Always. So I was a boat crew member all the time on these small boats. I was certified to be a boat crew member. So normally I would be like, "Oh, send me. I'm going to be like, you taking volunteers for boat crew? I'll go handle some lines. I'll go jump that net, whatever." I didn't even jump on that. Like, I was that nervous about this mission.
Well, dude, I mean,
or just, I had enough, I don't want to say nervous as in more like I didn't have enough. I didn't feel like I had enough information. I didn't feel like it's just something about it. I wasn't going to jump on it.
Well, nobody was in immediate distress. I mean, You've got maybe a 2-hour window until they maybe wash up. There's just, like, everything you're saying, yes. We would usually marb them. Like, we would marb them, at a small boat station. Right. So we would send somebody else unless there was a legit emergency.
Right, some sort of extenuating circumstance, exigent circumstance.
Dude.
And so there's I forget exactly how many people are on the boat, but it's in the high teens. 17 sticks out, but again, minute little detail, right? I don't know. Maybe it might have been even like 21, 22. So we were going to take off. It was going to take 3 loads of us taking off 4 to 5 people each time. So three launch recoveries.
Oh, God.
Cool. So we get this, and to set the stage, the Alaskan Mist was she was 120 something feet, so she was a fairly decent sized fishing vessel. Mm. She's rocking and rolling. So cool. We come up alongside the ship within about 100 yards, and we go dead in the water, so we're drifting next to her. We open up the stern doors on the notch and the stern of the cutter there to launch a small boat. And for your information, so the doors open up horizontally, just like 2 barn doors opening on a barn. Mm-hmm. And it takes forever. I'm talking like 2.5 minutes for these doors to completely open. So at the time, while those doors are opening, you're sitting in your seat on the small boat. The engine running, waves are washing in, so the stern of the small boat's getting picked up and set down hard. You're going up, you're going down. You're going up, you're going down. And cool. Normally you're underway, so normally that kind of cancels out that wash, mm-hmm. so to speak. So you're moving about 5 or 6 knots ahead, and now a little bit of water's filling up. You're not.
Right.
For whatever reason, we were dead in the water. They launched a small boat. They get over, and they put over another BM2, and I'm not going to say his name, because he'll factor into the after part of the story and why I'm still so pissed off about this.
Okay.
So they put over BM2 and a different BM2. And he takes up all the gear for the transfer, like the survival suits and things like that, because they can't necessarily get into their survival suits and climb down a ladder. So ours are a little more comfy, a little bit more able to move, but at the cost of protection. So BM2 gets up there and readies the first set of survivors. Call them survivors now. So they put 4 or 5 of them in the boat, and the coxswain comes back. So we got a coxswain, an engineer, a crew member, and 5 people in the water, or in the small boat. And I'm on the back deck. You know, my job on the back deck at that point was I was in charge of the arresting gear. So we have this big hydraulic ram system, and at the end of these 2 ram systems on either side of the notch is a cargo net looking thing. And then right in front of that cargo net, or right behind that cargo net, so to speak, is another line, a big piece of rope line. We call it line coast rope. And the whole idea is you drive this small boat up into the notch, and you hit that line with the bow of your small boat, and it bounces over this hook. So just like an airplane lands on an aircraft carrier, you catch the hook and stop yourself. So you drive up into the notch, catch this line, and drive, and basically you cut the engine off, or you let the throttles off, and you slide back on the skids of the notch, and that line catches you. And the cargo net is just there to keep you from going up into the up onto the helicopter deck, which is right above us. So I'm sitting there, and my whole job is so cool. I'm operating those rams. So the minute that boat gets in and catches that line, I'm bringing the rams in. So that I'm pulling that boat basically further up into the notch, and so they can close the doors. And I'm waiting on commands from the boat deck captain in charge. So basically the other bosun mate who's in charge of the boat deck. It could be anybody. At that point, we had kind of our how we were drifting had changed. Our attitude in the water had changed to now we were having the swells come in off the quarter. So the quarter being the back left side of the ship, the back port quarter of the ship. So the swells are coming in there. So we were getting some pretty nasty swells coming up into that notch, filling up. I mean, I could feel the spray on my face, and I'm 10 feet above the bottom of the notch.
And this is still your first run of survivors.
Yeah, this is our first run. So cool. BM2 lines up to his approach. It's looking good. We're not underway like we should be. We're not making way through the water like we should be. And it's just like a nightmare in time. It slows down. You can just see, boom, like all of a sudden this set of waves bigger than all the rest just comes out of nowhere, like perfect storm shit. And they couldn't have been more than 10 or 12 feet. But we weren't doing anything to minimize the effect they would have. BM2 comes in, rides that wave in. I mean, he's set. His attitude's perfect on the wave, like almost like surfing it in like you're supposed to. And Travis is forward of the console because we had problems with this boat and the fact that the hook was so small that the rope would bounce over the hook. But since it was so small, it wouldn't always catch. The rope would bounce before the hook itself could catch. It would bounce back up. So all Travis was doing was just to be there like a cat and slap that line back down. That was his job, and he was forward of the console. And that was the workaround we had figured out how to work to launch this boat up in Alaska because of the weather systems up there. So Travis slaps that line down. Boom. They ride out that first wave. It sounds bad. It sounds rough. The boat lands cattywampus on the notch. Okay, it's not a problem. Generally, if we pull the boat up, like, hey, that's not a problem. It'll straighten itself out. So boom, the boat deck captain's like in on the winch. So I'm pressing the button, pulling them in. And again, it's slow. One, it's cold, so the rams themselves are cold, and it's just a slow process to move them the next 6 feet up in the notch. And Everybody saw it. Chief saw it. Bosun saw it. Everybody's like, close the fucking stern doors now. Like the boat's still hanging out, but close the doors. Here comes this wave. And it picks up somebody I don't know who claimed, hey, got on the radio and ordered, ahead, move the cutter forward. And 10, 12 foot wave. And it picks up the small boat and just picks up the stern so high that it drove them diagonally. It drove the stern down into the notch, drove the bow down into the notch, and crushed Travis against the console and that cargo net. And he's just like there, and just like I swear it had been a cartoon, there would have been net prints on him when it released him. But it crushed him, and then that wave fell out, so the boat fell and jerked back. We're still coming in. And the next one, and that's the one that did it. Travis got released from the net. He slid down. He slumped. Just almost on. He didn't have time to make it to his butt, but he slumped. And I don't know if he was conscious at that point or not. And that next one did it. And that next just exact same type of wave came in, drove the bow down, and this time it was his head against that net, and 8,000 pounds of boat behind him, and wave and water against a 4-inch thick line that has a breaking strength of 25,000 pounds. So something had to give, and it was his helmet. So, I can't immediately do anything. I gotta pull the boat up so we can get the boat up high enough that we can get the doors closed. And remember, it takes 2.5 minutes to close or open the doors. And while, Bosun jumps in there, Bosun being a warrant officer, jumps in. Another first-class petty officer, Joey, who was a prior combat medic in the Army, jumps in. And it's bad, I've never seen a crushing injury, but that's what it was. It was a crushing injury. It wasn't anything else. I've seen other stuff. I've seen a person flayed open like a manatee from a boat prop, and it didn't affect me the way this did. Probably because I didn't see the accident. It's the first time I've been there for it, so. And they pull him out. He's got blood coming out of all of the orifices on his face. And boom, they take him into sick bay. They take him to the triage, which is on the mess deck actually. And Doc's there. Doc is doing his thing, and I'm told later that that there was some miscommunication about who was doing what, and where, and who, and everything, and that was that. So boom, all of a sudden we get the now set flight quarters. So boom, we've rolled a helicopter out that we got stored in the hangar, rolled it out, boom, set it up, send him off to Cold Bay, Alaska. And Air Station Kodiak comes out and takes him the rest of the way from Cold Bay, Alaska, where they have a forward deployed MH-60, a Jayhawk. And so they airlifted him over to Anchorage in one hop. And we left the rest of the crew members on board the Alaska Mist. We had R5 in the night, and we finished the setting up the tow and got him in tow. And the next morning, we airlifted the rest of the people, the non-essential people, off the Alaska Mist, plus our BM2. We still didn't know what had happened. They sequestered the boat crew, as in no talkie. You can't talk to them. I get told to write a statement, and I go on watch later that night, and I open up the logs, and I see that there's a different set of logs for the day. You run your logs within 24-hour period. And I'm like, well, that's funny. So I try to open up the correct logs, and they're locked. they're locked to editing, so you can open them and look at them, and I can see the C's that are clearly see. Okay, cool. We're logging the C's at 6 to 8 feet with the occasional 10 to 12. Okay. So cool. All right. So we spent 4 days dragging this boat back to Dutch Harbor because we can't make a whole lot of speed. And all that time we're told, hey, Travis he's going to be okay. He's he's in induced coma, so they can reduce the brain swelling, this, that, and the other thing. They're going to move him to Seattle. His family's been notified, all that fun stuff. So we get to Alaska. We get back to Dutch Harbor on Alaska Island, and they send out the mishap board team, all these people, and they start asking questions. And anybody who's been through an investigation like that would know that sometimes there's just people on those boards that probably you shouldn't be in a locker room with. But the VM1 was asking questions about everything, and I just wanted to throw him out the window. Just remember that, you're a smarmy SOB, and I have no idea how you got on this the volunteer position. I have no idea how you got on this thing, but there's a lot of anger going around. Like, this shouldn't have happened. And even then it was told, this shouldn't have happened. And captain's, giving us updates over the intercom every night, and the one MC, and he, and everybody's just kind of like, he's crying, and we're all, for the longest time, I think a lot of us bought it. Hey, the captain's just as upset about this. He recognizes, like, he forced this boat crew to get underway. And then they canceled the rest of our patrol. So that was November 7th. It was Veterans Day that the accident happened. We were in Dutch Harbor for 2 weeks, doing the mishap analysis board, all that fun stuff. And the shitty thing is we have to sail back to Alameda, California, a 1-week sail, 10-day sail, with that broken-ass boat, that deflated broken-ass boat with his blood still in it, in the notch. So I got to look at this thing as I'm mooring up the cutter in Alameda, California. And we get back in, and about a week later, we get the news that, hey, they're pulling him off life support. It was out of the blue. We've been getting constant updates that, hey, he's doing better. Hey, he woke up today. He couldn't speak, but he could blink his eyes in response to people asking him questions. Cool. Like, the son of a bitch is going to be good to go by the time we get underway for Hawaii this summer. It's going to be great. And then they pulled the plug on him. His family had to make that decision that he just wasn't going to recover. And we were like, what the hell? What happened? And then it was, we were so close to Christmas that we didn't want to destroy, we didn't want to upset the crew, this, that, everything. And the whole fucking command was in on this, keeping this from us. And they pulled, it was December 17th, 2013, when Obi crossed the bar. It didn't hit me real well. It didn't hit me real hard right then and there. And it didn't, because we're still waiting on the analysis board. Like, okay, that's our saving grace. Like, we slapped Captain down a little bit for this. And it was, they had his memorial in January, and they read the Coast Guard Commendation Medal that they gave him. Not an LOC, but the Coast Guard Commendation Medal. So they give this guy posthumously for, a severe rescue mission in horrendous weather conditions in Slime Bank, Alaska. You're just like, oh my God. And come to find out they whitewashed it. They whitewashed his passing. There were some news articles about faulty equipment and this, that, and the other thing. And the only real thing that came out of it, Pam, at that time was, hey, don't put anybody forward of the console when you're notching the boat. When you're driving the boat back into the notch, nobody needs to be forward. Everybody needs to be in a seat or behind the coxswain.
So that was the consensus across the entire Coast Guard after all of this was said and done. That's the only rule that they implemented after Obi passed away.
Yes.
I can't imagine, dude.
it sucks. And now where everybody's like, shit, we got another 6 months with this asshole too.
With their CO.
With our CO and our whole command team, actually. Like, he's going to get his Admiral star because he forced these people to get underway. And I mention that because just for whatever reason, I was looking at my statement again. I'd already turned it in, stated the weather conditions as I saw them at the time. And I opened up those logs. And those numbers on the wave heights have been changed to 6 to 8s across the board. So even the swell waves were down to 6 to 8, plus a 6 to 8 foot wave on top of the swell, which is within parameters for the Coast Guard toxins. And a lot of people, I wasn't the only one to notice it. A lot of people noticed it. We were, hey, we were told constantly, hey, it's going to be taken care of. It's okay. Like, this is what's going to happen. And I believed him. I believed that the Coast Guard was going to carry through its people. I'd seen the Coast Guard do right by so many people before that. I'd seen the people get punished. But this is my first command dealing with officers. And, you always hear like stuff like that. And I don't know if it was a good old boy network in the officer world that got him out of anything. I do know he retired shortly after he left command of Weishi. I don't know what happened to our XO at the time. I don't know what happened to our operations officer at the time. But he was gone. We were done with him. We got Captain Hendrickson, and that was really good. I think what immediately helped with that process that spring and summer were two things for me. And that was the ability on a professional level, the way she got tapped to, hey, we've got to do some testing with this new Mark IV boat because it's not designed for this notch. We just had this horrific accident. We've got to come up with some safety parameters and some the design changes to the boat. Weishi, go out there, spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks out there, out offshore with the engineers, with the designers of this boat, and make it happen. And we did. We spent 3 weeks. I racked up 80 hours underway on that small boat in 3 weeks, testing the hell out of that thing to make design changes to make it safer to recover that small boat. Because they never could speed up the equipment on board the cutter. They never really could. But we played with placement, how that catch gear on the notch and the rams was. And that was, to everybody that was operational at that time, that was going to be Travis's legacy is, hey, we're going to make this better because it's never going to happen again.
Do you think...
not on my watch.
And not to really interrupt you here, but do you think that knowing that you guys had an opportunity to really, implement or help his legacy stay alive, do you think that helped you push through getting back on that small boat, getting back in those elements all over again? Because me personally, I would just be triggered nonstop, and all of a sudden you want me to get back in it. Do you think that, I don't know if that came up for you guys or anybody of the crew, but if it did it help knowing that? It did.
It came up for one guy in particular, and I was sitting in the radio seat next to him. So he was the coxswain. He was a BM3, and this was the first unit he'd been qualified coxswain on. And he's doing his test launches. And for whatever reason, they open the stern doors, and they're getting ready to launch the boat. And to launch the small boat from outside that thing, you turn it on, everybody's sitting down, buckled in, helmets, all that fun stuff. And you pull up on this mechanical D-ring, so to speak. It's basically just think of how a staple gun looks, and I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. What would we call it? I don't even remember what we call the darn thing. But you basically you put a chain through it, a length of chain through it, and two teeth set down on one another, and it locks the boat in, and you can winch the boat in and out, up and out. So and then you pull a tag line, and it releases those teeth, and the boat is released and can go into the water and do its thing.
I can see that. So
that mechanical device, I can't, for the life of me, remember what we called it. It broke on us. Like we were taking some heavy. We were testing some kind of right at the limits of where we think our launch perimeter should be, and right at the course and speed we should have been at, and we were testing it, see how far you can go. And we were taking some waves in there, and one of them pushed us up, and that was the oh shit, fuck, here we go moment. Like, this is it. Like, again, this is how it happens for me. You know, now Mrs. Kelton's getting $400K in SGLI, life insurance money. So it pushed us up, and then that wave just backed out. We had nothing, and we're in gravity, you know. So 7,500 pound boat, and people on board go flying out the back, and that mechanical device catches and breaks, and boom, hey, we go out. Next wave comes in and pushes us in sideways, and I can distinctly remember I'm holding on to the console with my right hand. I'm looking at Chase, who's driving the boat, and I look to my right, and we are sideways in this notch. Oh, shit. And all I can see is the hinges of the door, not the hinges, but the pins of the door are eye level, and they're rushing at me. They're like supersonic speed. And then, for whatever reason, he recovers and backs us out of it, gets out and like boom, and then he freaks out. And at that point, I was fine. I was like, okay, well, that's cool. Let's go back in and do it again. And he's freaking the fuck out. Like, he's having an episode. Mm-hmm. And it's not the time to have an episode. You know? And he's like, he's on the radio, like, I can't believe you would do that. Nobody called you to release. And I'm like, I'm distinctly remember like seeing that thing break and seeing the look on the guy's face that was supposed to release it, going, it broke. I don't know what to do. I can distinctly remember seeing that. And he's on the radio cussing out everybody, which is a no-no on Coast Guard Coast Guard radio. We don't like bad language. Mm-hmm. And he's just freaking out. And I Chase, calm down. Chase, calm down. He's like, no, I'm not fucking calming down. I'm gonna get up there and kick somebody's ass. I was like, and I'm thinking, like, I couldn't get through to him. And I just slapped him as hard as I could in the back of the helmet. I was like, knock it the fuck off and get us back in there. And he goes, I'm writing you up. I can't believe you just hit me. Like, I'm the coxswain of the boat. I can't believe you would. I was like, get us back in there. Do your job. Get us back in there. And he's not the one to apologize. He's not the one to you know, admit that he was in the wrong. But nothing ever came of that, you know. You know, to hear him tell the story, he never lost his cool. But I could tell, like, something had to knock him close. Like, there's a time to freak out, and there was a time not to. Now, I'm not going to say I didn't get back that night, eat dinner, work out, go back to my room, and sit down and go, what the fuck just happened? And I did. And I wrote, and I remember gripping the chair and writing an email to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, my lovely wife, and going, I love you. I love you more than anything in this world. And, you know, if anything were to ever happen to me out here, just remember that I always thought about you. And her anxiety brain went the opposite way with that and goes, she says, are you breaking up with me? It's like, no, I'm not breaking up with you. Like we're doing San Diego in 36 hours. I'll call you. But she's also one of those reasons too, because backing up to Travis's story is, I went on my first date with her. I had already scheduled my first date with her the day Travis died. So I went on that date that night anyway. And, you know, I mentioned it in passing. It's like, hey, you know, I got a buddy that I just found out passed away. But I didn't let it affect me that night. And, you know, God bless her, like, she stuck with me. Like, my real problems with it didn't come until finding out all the whitewashing stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, and finding out. And I still to this day find out, bits and pieces more. And it just starts the process, the anger all over again. I'm at peace with what happened. You know, the old saying is you have to go out, but you don't have to come back in. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not the Coast Guard's motto anymore, but I'm at peace with what happened. I still hate it. I still remember it in November. My wife will tell you, I get real dumpy right after Halloween. I'm a pain in the ass to live with because of the anniversary of the accident. Mm-hmm. But had I not had that healing, that immediate healing process where, hey, never again, I'm not going to let this happen again. I'm going to test this boat to the line. I'm going to write the book on how to recover this boat, you know, in all types of weathers. And to this day, there's a Coast Guard PQS on how to recover boats in cutters with small boat notches in the stern. So, and I've served on all three of those cutter classes now. So it's cool. Like I still have those little moments where I think about it and it just sucks.
So in the wake of everything, something good eventually came out of it. Meaning,
oh, yeah. Sure.
you guys had to face some serious demons to know that what you guys were doing could potentially save somebody else's life down the road, even if it were at the expense of your own.
Right.
And that, I mean, that's what it's about, man. That's what, you know, Coast Guard gets a lot of shit. We get a lot of shit. We're the redheaded stepchildren, this, that, and the other.
I take a perverse pride in that shit, too.
I do, too. And, you know, it's funny, until I show somebody, like, the sea state that we've been in or tell them a sea story, they're like, oh, shit. Like, that happens? I'm like, yeah, that happens. Like, you guys have no idea, you know, what happens out when you're out at sea. Like, people don't get it. And you've been in Dutch Harbor. You've been in those seas that I've never been in, and God bless you, because my ass would never want to be in those seas.
The coolest thing about those seas was I went back to that patrol on Way Sheet to an Alaska patrol 2 years later, and the weather was infinitesimally, like, infinitely more horrible. We had more storms, so we were riding out a storm off the Dutch Harbor. We're in 35-foot seas. I'm going on my 8th hour of watch on the bridge because nobody else can come up to relieve me because they're all in the rack puking. I'm having the time of my life. It's me and Chief up there drinking coffee. Chief's going out on the bridge wing to smoke cigarettes and like, hey, like, just tell me if the big one comes. And like, we're going 2 knots ahead into the storm. And I look out over at Dutch Harbor. I can see Dutch Harbor a couple miles away every time we come up to the crest of a wave. Mm-hmm. And there's orcas. Literally orcas screwing around, playing, surfing those waves right next to us.
That's so cool.
And that was like the coolest thing. That's like, you see one, literally, you see this 15-foot, 18-foot whale, dolphin, however you want to name it, killer whale, jump literally 50 feet, horizontally 50 feet from one wave, out the face of one wave, into the face of another. And that was cool. And then I'm like, hey, Chief, here comes a big one. And I'm looking, and it's this monster, like 40-plus foot wave. And we hit this thing. We're going 2 knots ahead. So, and we hit this thing. And by the time this thing passes over us, and I say over us, it's what it did. We were going half a knot astern. It had stopped a 4,500 displacement ton vessel, a huge ass boat. It stopped it and started pushing it backwards. And
that's just I'm telling you, the power of Mother Nature. Like, when she is a raging bitch, excuse my language. Yeah. She is absolutely.
I'm gonna cuss too. I heard you cussing. I'm gonna cuss.
Yeah, I mean, I have no filter on these podcasts, just so you know, and I check the explicit content when I load it, so it's good. But okay. I mean,
all right, I'll try to keep it kid-friendly.
Well, you know what? I appreciate you really diving into that story and pulling us back out to know that something good came out of it. It's really just unfortunate that the crew and you especially had to go through that and see that, but to know that you wanted to honor Obi's legacy and you were willing to put your ass in the hot seat. You literally put your ass in the hot seat and, you know, was willing to put it all on the line just so you could help keep his legacy alive. That is the coolest shit ever, man. And I'm getting goosebumps. You can't see it, but I'm getting goosebumps right now. Because that's what it's about. You know, that's the stuff that people that aren't in the service, they don't see. You hear about it, but you don't hear about it in this kind of explicit detail. You just hear, my buddy got blown up, or my this, or my that. And I'm just like, no, there's more to this story. And there's a reason why we're hurting, why we've got PTSD, why we've got triggers, why, and that's not just us. Like that applies to anybody, even civilians. But, you know, thank you for highlighting the ugly with hopes that, you know, somebody who's listening can know, like, man, you were a part of that's Coast Guard history right there. To be able to be a part of something to change the way the Coast Guard does something, that's Coast Guard history. And I just want to commend you for that. And I think that's really cool. I really do. I want to,
as people say, yeah.
No, go ahead.
As when people say thank you for your service, I was like, well, I don't want to say you're welcome. That sounds self-serving, but at the same time, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Because at the most, 90% of my career has really, my Coast Guard time, I'm not active duty anymore. I'm on service now. Has been, I've done it for the adventure. You said you did it because you dove into your reasons for getting all in that stuff, and damn, your story, like not just the SAR case, but everything leading up to you getting into the Coast Guard is just like, that's nothing like me. Like, I literally did it because it was 2007 and the stock market and everything else was crashing. We were going into that recession stuff,
mm-hmm.
and my job cleaning pools and training lifeguards wasn't going to be around. So I wanted some adventure, and that was I've been an adventure seeker every time I'm in the Coast Guard. And I just happened to be able to be pig-headed enough, or dare I say, good enough to have some cool stories and do some cool things, and just barrel my way into doing some cool things. So,
well, speaking of adventure. Because I've got all day. I know you've got to get back to your family at some point, but I've got about maybe good 15 more minutes or so, 20 minutes.
Okay.
If you have it. I heard about, and you guys are going to love this one. When I got stationed at Sabine Pass, I heard a story that somebody ran a boat aground in the marsh. I don't know if that's correct or not. And I never got...
Not the marsh.
Well, I never got the full... See what I'm saying? 'Cause I never got the full story. But I found out you were the one behind the wheel.
Oh, of course.
So,
and everybody's favorite non-rate, Holton Walker.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, big shout out to Holton. He's actually here in Texas still.
He is, yeah. So
he lives not too far from me.
I had to call him up this past summer. I got recalled to active duty and had to call him up for some technical advice for some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
oh my! Maybe I was there.
BM3 Kelton. I was brand new. I was brand new baby coxswain. Like, the ink on my certification letter as a small boat coxswain was not dry. And somebody, it might have been Whipple. It's like, hey, go put the 25806. So all of our boats have numbers, and the first two numbers denote the size, right? So it's a 25-foot small boat. Go put the 25806, and I'll remember the 806. I'll never forget it. Go put it on the trailer. Like, okay, cool. I can handle this. I'm like, cool. Walker and Perganon, the other non-rate. Like, you're my crew members. We're gonna go put this boat on the trailer. I think I had somebody else go. Somebody meet me at the boat ramp with the boat trailer.
You mean the boat ramp that wasn't terribly far away?
You're right. Yeah, the boat ramp that was literally 2 miles up the river. Not even 2 miles up the river. And it's so cool. Go do that. Get underway, go do that, do the mission, and the watchstander calls at the comms room and says, hey, there's a tug that just went through under the West Port Arthur Bridge in the ICW. It says they think they saw a car in the water under the bridge.
Oh, shit. Here we go.
And we're like, it's a tug. Like, if you remember the Port Arthur Bridge, it's not that wide. A tug, like it's like 100, 150 yards wide. Like, I'm thinking, if he's on the bridge of his tugboat, he should be able to tell if it's a car or not. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no car in the water. If you think it's a car, it's not. It's one of those things, right?
Like he said,
if the answer
arrogant.
is you don't know, the answer is no. And that was like, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, whatever. It's the middle of the day. I got nothing better to do. Let's go waste some time. Throw those throttles down. Get it on plane. Walker's hitting the blue lights. Like, yeah. Like, whatever. It's cool. Like, let's see how fast they can get to the boat.
It's like the A-team responding to something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit.
So, boom, go up there. Come around that bend. See the bridge. Sure shit. There's a car in the water.
Oh, shit.
So, cool. I get up there and I put the keel of the boat on the hood of this Trailblazer, Chevy Trailblazer. You get Walker or Perganon up. What's that?
On purpose?
On purpose. Like, we're going to see if there's anybody in the car.
Yeah.
So
Oh
cool.
my God.
I inch in there real good. I'm just like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. Like, depth sounder's going off. Don't worry about that thing. Trim up the motors so they don't hit anything. Like, it's got to be mud around here, right? Cool. Walker goes up there, takes the boat hook, knocks on the windows. It's like, no, nobody in there. We're cool. Back out. And I blamed it on a ship passing by and sucking the water out. Because we know how those ships used to do that, right?
Yeah.
And putting me on a rock. But my mom was fairly certain it was my own little smart ass, like, getting a little turned around, and I put myself on a rock. And when I say put myself on a rock, is these small boats have what we call performance fins on either side of them, on the very leading edges of the gunnels where they meet the water. And that allows us to do these really cool, like, dogfighting maneuvers and turns where you're literally driving out of the sunroof because that's the only window that like you can see out of.
0 degree radius.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
You turn this boat fast enough that your ass is where your nose was. And I get that performance fin stuck on a rock. And I'm like, oh shit, that's it. I'm dead. Like, I'm going to get back to the station, and Mr. Ruhlman, the CO, the commanding officer of the station, is going to rip up my letter in front of me. Or he's going to, even worse, he's going to make me rip it up myself. Like, I'm freaking out. And I remember like, I could put one engine in forward and one engine in stern back, and I could pivot that boat 360 degrees. Mm-hmm. I could turn that boat 360 degrees on that rock, but I could not get that fin off that rock. We could rock it, and just like it sounded like it was just screeching metal, right?
You didn't think about putting anybody in the water?
I didn't. I thought that was like I thought that was like wholly against the Coast Guard rules and stuff like that, right?
It kind of is, but anyways.
Yeah,
do what you gotta do.
But hey, BM3 Kelton wouldn't have done that. BM1 Kelton would have done that shit and said, "Hey, everybody, erase your phones." Okay.
I'm so glad I'm out.
So shit. I'm pulling my hair out now thinking about that. And I think it was about 6 feet deep, maybe 5-6 feet deep, all around this rock too. I found one freaking rock that I could find, but I just remember because Steven Stewart, the BM2, BM1 at the time, he had to come up and just laughed at me and did some other stuff with the people on shore, got the car out of the water. He's just laughing the entire time. And then he leaves with the other boat. He just leaves me there.
Of course.
And Jefferson County Sheriff's Department brings their boat out, laughing all the way, just pointing, laughing, taking pictures. I remember his name, Deputy Larry Birdsong, taking pictures and throwing a heaving line at me, and I'm just pulls me off that, and I get back to the station, and now BM3 Kelton, lay to Mr. Ruhlman's office, BM3 Kelton, Mr. Ruhlman's office.
You didn't even trailer this thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
They let me trailer
at least you got a trailer.
There wasn't a whole lot of damage. There was this like chalk line on the actual hull of the boat. But it wasn't like a gouge or anything.
Man, you got lucky.
It was just clean metal. I did. I got real lucky.
So they piped you to the CO's office.
CO's office. And I get up there, and I'm just trudging up the ladder well, up the stairwell. I turn the corner, knock on I squared it like bump, squared it. Just enter. I'm like, do I say BM3 Kelton reporting as ordered? I mean, what's the official language here? And the words out of his mouth is like, "What's up, pivot point?" Because I got in the boat stuck literally on its pivot point, on where that boat, when you're turning the boat, the actual point in the boat where one of them turns around the axis and the other axis turns the other way.
That's why you weren't going anywhere.
And that was my nickname. Yeah.
Pivot
and I went
point.
back to the station. It was funny. I went back to the station. I was there for somebody else's wedding a year or so after I transferred out, and I went back and I looked at the chart, and it was labeled Kelton's Rock. Fucking bridge, and the rock under the bridge was labeled Kelton's Rock.
Kelton's Rock.
And I'm a goddamn navigational training aid.
I need that chart. Give me that chart number. Dude, do you remember were you? I don't know if you were in our duty section, but okay, for my listeners, just if you can imagine this, just close your eyes and really imagine this, right? Do you remember when the 24 got capsized when a deep draft passed by? Do you remember that shit?
And I've named it 528 Day. Every time I see it, I've named it Happy 528 Day because that was the name of the 24. It's 24528.
528? Oh my gosh.
Yep.
You were good at remembering this stuff. I can't even remember some of this stuff, but yeah, I remember.
Well, it's easy because you remember Chief O'Brien?
Uh-huh.
I work with him right now.
That's right, because you're out
He's
in South
retired
Carolina.
now. I'm out in South Carolina, so we memorize all, like, we've had some time to recall some things.
Well, I remember I came in. I wasn't on duty when it happened, but I came in. I think we were leaving some duty section, and all I remember was the 24 was capsized. And I was like, what? I'm like, why is one of our boats capsized in its slip? It was in its slip. It wasn't even like underway.
How does this happen?
It was in its slip closest to the station. Like it wasn't even, it was just the craziest shit ever.
It was the most protected slip.
The most protected slip, and it capsized. And the lines were still holding on, by the way. That was kind of cool. I think I have a picture of Riv standing on it, like with a Captain Morgan pose somewhere. So they end up, that happens. And then there's this big investigation. And I remember shortly after, a few months after, Dad was like the OD of the day. And for those that don't know, Sabine Pass is really big for fishing. And we would open up our station for civilians to come fish off the pier. And I mean, like we had reds. I remember on duty weekends we would catch flounder, and the guys would go duck hunting in the morning.
Oh yeah, it was one of the reasons I elected to go there. I was single at the time, and I was like, hey, fishing's supposedly good here. Let's go.
Yeah,
sign me up.
Yeah, it was, and I would imagine still is the hot spot. But I remember I was sitting in the watch room because again I busted my ankle, so I was always on watch, and I had the window open where I could hear the guys on the pier. And I just remember I heard them screaming, like yelling, like, what the fuck? And I look, and the window's blocking a good portion of the pier, so I can't see out. All of a sudden, I see everybody that's fishing running towards the station on the pier. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And all of a sudden, this huge-ass wave, comes and washes over the entire pier. It was so...
Oh, yeah, those cargo ships would go through there so fast. Oh, my
gosh. It was so big that when I actually went down to the pier, the water mark had to have been 10 feet up from the pier. It was a huge ass wave. I remember
covering the boat now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It ended up jacking up the 41, the antenna. One of the antennas.
Oh, yeah. That's when we had to start putting them back down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and that's because the overhead wasn't even that low. This was a big ass wave, and I'm not over exaggerating. But Dav, I remember he called the watch room. He's like, "Get that motherfucker!" Like he was not happy.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
God.
Yeah.
I was like, this is really happening. Holy shit. I don't even know what came of the 24 capsizing, but I remember that. And then
we eventually, months later, got that boat back, and it was that boat was brand new.
Yeah,
I don't even think we were done with the engine break-in hours on it.
No, and I remember it was all muddy and shit when we.
Oh yeah,
pulled it out. Were you with us when we got sucked up under the car carrier?
No, but I remember this. I remember you guys talking about it in quarters.
Oh man,
that's another heroin one. That's just. Ooh.
I thought I was gonna be sushi that day. I'm not even gonna lie. I jumped in the pilot house, put my just hands in my head, just here we go. That was a fun one. And
I submarined at 25.
How the hell were you going?
Another cargo ship going really fast, going up the canal, and it's a big wide canal, a half mile wide or something. And I'm coming down full speed. I'm coming back from an escort, middle of the night, and for whatever reason, I didn't see this thing's wake.
Oh shit!
And I hit that thing full speed on plane, and I didn't go over that wave. I went through it. And I just remember water, looking over the steering wheel into that forward cubby, that forward cab, the forward walk area where the bow gunner would sit. And I was just like, that thing's full of water. Like, there's tuna literally swimming around up there. Like, it's just, please don't bog out the engines. Please don't bog out the engines. Just like, and I'm like, the radio, like, there's probably Brad Howe on the radio. He's calling the other boat, like, hey, there's a huge wake. We didn't see it. Slow down. Watch out for it. And they're like, too late. We hit it broadside. And I look back and see this red port light just bobbing. Just.
Oh, man. Do you, there was that like 3-month period too where 3 of us like jacked up our hands. Do you remember that one? It was, I forget who it was.
You, Jeremy, and somebody else.
Yeah,
Regal.
Was it Regal? So one of the guys, I can't remember his name, his finger got caught in between the hatch and the knife edge, and he jacked himself up that way. And then one of our engineers, he was drilling something, and the drill bit broke, and he drilled through his hand. And then my ass...
I feel like that was Jesse.
What's his last name?
Jesse Howe.
Yeah, it was Howe. I believe it was Howe.
Big baby Huey, big Huey guy.
Yeah, baby Huey. Oh my God, I forgot about that. Ah, yeah, he drilled through his hand, and then my finger got smashed on a jack stand. And actually, Walker was with me. Walker took me to the hospital because I had to get stitches. But I remember it was just like all of us back to back to back.
Yeah.
It was not good.
Oh God.
Oh man.
It was, there was enough people at that station. There was always something.
There was.
And, it was just ridiculous. Yeah, it was good for a good time. We had good times. I remember going to the Sick Puppies concert with you and Drew and Greg.
I remember that. Oh,
yeah. We got our ID signed.
Oh, y'all did. I was just too busy fangirling.
On old Lizzie there, huh?
Oh man, Emma Anti, the bass player, Emma.
Yeah,
Emma. But yeah, no, I'm like in hardcore love with Lizzie Hell right now with Hellstorm. I've been for like 10 years, anyways. I remember that. I remember doing.
Oh, it was Emma. Okay.
It was Emma. Yeah, they have a new lead singer, and I haven't really been following them lately, but
yeah, I kind of fell out of favor with them.
I remember that concert, and we'd go country dancing sometimes.
The only thing to do in Beaumont, Texas.
In Beaumont.
Are you ready for some sad news?
Yeah.
The Saddle Rack, or whatever it's called, the place we used to always go to, is no longer there.
What?
It is closed. Yes.
Wait.
Yeah.
What about the burger joint you guys used to go to all the time?
Oh, because we only went to it by boat.
Yes.
I was just thinking about this, the best swamp burger in Cow Bayou.
Cow Bayou.
Peggy's on the Bayou.
Peggy's.
And
not a single one of you assholes took me. But I kept hearing about it.
Oh my God, really? You missed it?
Yeah.
I don't know how to get there by car. I don't even know Google Maps knows how to get there. For your listeners, this place is, when I say bayou, when they say Cow Bayou, it is literally a backwoods bayou. And you drive up this canal on the boat, and you don't stop, because if you do, you may get stuck in the mud. And then you pull up to this like shack hanging out over the water in this derelict 1954 houseboat. That the only thing holding it afloat is these lines that have chafed. Like they're literally about to fall apart if you breathe on them heavily. And then right next to this place is this greasy spoon called Peggy's on the Bayou. And they have this Cow Bayou burger, and it's like the greasiest, nastiest sounding thing, but it's just wholesome goodness in your mouth. It's yeah. And we're talking fajita, onions and peppers on top of it, grilled jalapenos.
Are you serious?
You don't want to eat for a week. I mean, it's indigestion in a bun.
Oh my gosh.
But okay, she took care of us. So.
Well, I'm glad she took care of you guys. But well, I think we are ready to wrap up, Sam. But thank you so much for being here. It's just good to reconnect with you. Don't hang up. We'll catch up here in a second. But I just thank you again for being here. I love following you. I love what you're doing now in South Carolina, which you're at the what's that place called again?
Maritime Law Enforcement Academy.
There you go. There you go.
So I basically train the Coast Guard's new boarding officers. I train Coasties to do the law enforcement mission now.
Oh, shit.
Which, after I left Sabine Pass, I fell into that, doing the pursuit mission, the counter-drug mission. Mm-hmm. And I found out that I'm like a Labrador chasing a tennis ball. You tell me to go chase a drug runner, and I'm going to do it till I catch him or I run out of gas. And now I want to train other people to do it.
Well, I may talk a lot of shit, but I am actually happy that you and Chief are over there, you know, and getting our guys and gals trained up, and we know they're in good hands. So I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm actually excited to see what's coming up for you and your family. I know your little one's growing up, and she is like a spitting image of your wife.
Putting a brick on her head. Yeah. Well, thanks. Like I'm glad that you have found a way to get this stuff out and do something for us, not only for the Coast Guard, because it's important too, but for yourself and for everybody else that's listening and that's been affected by, you know, some sort of tragedy or overcome some sort of hurdle in their life, because you have to overcome it. And people will help you, but until you make that decision to help yourself, make that decision to get out and live your life, and it's just not going to be the same. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share some stories. I'm happy to share my story about Obi, because I don't want people to forget him. And, you know, transition is hard. So keep up with it.
We'll do. I appreciate that. You always got a friend here too. Just know that. Always.
Oh, I know. Trust me, we're coming back to Dallas at some point.
Hell yeah. Hey, and just on a personal note, if you know anybody else that wants to be on, I'd be more than happy to give them this platform if they want to share stories or anything. I mean, that's what we're here for. And so just know I'm putting that invite out there. Listeners, if you guys have a story you guys want to be on, make sure to email me at 2200taps@gmail.com. I'm actually going to put my personal email, God help me, at gmail.com. That's 2200taps@gmail. And you can find me on 2200taps.com. We are on iHeartRadio, Spotify, going to be on Pandora pretty soon. We're on a lot of major platforms for podcasts and SoundCloud. So thanks for sticking with us, and I will talk to y'all later.